Hello, everyone, and welcome again. Today, I'm honored to be joined by Vivek Nath. Vivek is a teacher, a Vedic ritualist, and ongoing student of the Indian spiritual traditions. His work bridges both the ancient and the modern, and he's someone who not only teaches Sanskrit philosophy and puja, the sacred rituals of India, but he actually lives and embodies them. And as I understand, you move between different worlds, the sacred city of Varanasi, the stillness of the Himalayas, and you actually live in southern Germany as well. And that brings you sort of the unique ability to teach these timeless practices, both with clarity and depth, no matter where you are on your path or where you come from, what walk of life you come from, cultural background, all that kind of thing. You're able to bring it into that modern context. He teaches courses on Panchopachara, Vāgyoga, Shodasopachara, and he shares the profound beauty of mantra, ritual, and sound as living doorways into the inner world. And what I personally appreciate about Vivek is how he makes these traditions approachable without watering them down. He recently wrote a book, and I'm going to show it here, Mantra Shiksha Vāgyoga, which is on mantra philosophy. It's a very, very beautiful book. It's now available on Amazon. Originally, it was published in German, and now it's translated into English, and it also includes recordings that you can follow as well. So whether you're someone who's drawn to mantra practice, interested in Vedic rituals, or just somehow longing for a more deeply spiritual life, I think you'll find a lot of inspiration and insight into today's discussion.
Thank you very much,
Vivek.
Joey.
It's nice to have you here.
Thanks for having me and that lovely introduction of yours.
Definitely, definitely.
It's true. We are moving between cultures and continents and states of mind, indeed.
Definitely. And I'm glad that I have you here because I have a lot of questions I would like to talk to you today, specifically about your book, but also generally relating to mantra practice. So perhaps listeners can gain additional insight. And then, they might be interested in looking at your book a little bit more closely, or even looking at some of your course material as well. So maybe we can just jump into your background a little bit and what led you on this path that you're on in life. I think listeners would be interested in hearing a little bit more about it.
Well, I'm a German Indian with a German mother and an Indian father who came as some of the first, he was a part of the first batch of well-educated Indians who came to the West, and he sort of got lost in material endeavor. And to me, it was pretty clear that I would want to do something of value. So with the age of 20, I decided to go back to these roots and study Sanskrit. And in the gullies, in the lanes of Benares, I spent more than 20 years studying. And I was fortunate to meet my uncle, great uncle, the husband of my cousin, since my father was from Benares. So I went to Benares, and there he was, my great uncle. He was a saint, and he was a devotee of the mother goddess. If I may say, the light in his eyes gave me the energy to leave behind the West to such an extent that I could submerge in Indian culture. Because studying Sanskrit, it was pretty clear to me, would mean to practice. And so Saraswati, Vidya, she, the mother, she is knowledge. Yeah? She's also preparing that path of knowledge. So after many years of focusing on Sanskrit and going through Veda and classical philosophical systems, I was lucky to study with Sri Narayan Mishra. And I had introduction into yoga very early on from a senior student of Dyczkowski, Krishnamacharya. So I was well introduced. And then my uncle teaching me meditation in the first month of the Chandi part. Then I got introduced much later after he left his body. I studied 3 years in Heidelberg. He left his body on the 31st of May in the year 2000. I didn't come to India. I stayed in Germany. And I studied classical Indology. There was no point for me to go to India. I lost my guru. And I closed down that education in Heidelberg, which was very good to see how the West academics in the West are working. I gained a lot from studying in Heidelberg. Also, I had already spent 5 years with Vāgī Shastra, Mahama Upadhyaya Vāgī Shastra, my Sanskrit. No, 5, it's not 3 years, from 97. And so I came back to India, and as mother prepares the path, I was well versed in conversational Sanskrit. I went through the yoga shastras with Vāgguruji for a couple of years. And we may call them primers, because in the year 2004, I met Dr. Mark Dyczkowski. And I was living in his house, because he was also a student of my Sanskrit Guruji. We share the same Sanskrit Guru. And Vāgguruji told me, Dr. Mark has a battery. It was so hot in Benares. I was there in the summer and I was not feeling well, and I couldn't ventilate myself. So I went to live in Mark's house. When he came back from Italy, he found me living in his house, and I stayed with him for a couple of years, and on and off I stayed with him. I suppose as the only student who managed to stay that close with Guru Mark. And for the first 2-3 years, I didn't really understood what he was doing, because I was still delving into Yoga Shastra and into Veda and into Upanishads. And I went through the classical philosophical systems in those days with Srinarayan Mishra. And the more I had contact with Mark, well, he started teaching me on Tantra Sapa, which is an abbreviation of a concise form of the Tantra Loka. And that study circle, it grew and grew. I started recording things, and Mark was still in the phase of finishing the Kupchika Tantra. For 20 years, he was living like a hermit in his hermitage, studying this nearly lost Tantra of a very early tradition of Tantric revelation, which actually is the part of initiation into the whole lot of moving into the road of mantra, mantra marga, which is regarded Tantra. So I met Mark in the period where he was about to close down Kupchika. Within 3 years, he finished that big work. Then he started doing the Tantra Loka, and he managed that. It's good we start with Guru Mark. He was such a beautiful and important person for all of us, for the spiritual community, the scholarly community, his friends and his family, of course. And he actually brought down the Tantras into a, let's say, you and me language, down to earth language. The way he was talking about Lord Shiva, I never heard anybody speak like that. And I've been sitting with very high gurus. But the capability of that philosophy of consciousness to explain, you see, until I met Mark, I was already into puja. I did pujas and I recited Veda, and it doesn't matter what you practice. It's your intention which makes anything effective or fruitful. So going into Veda is very powerful. It transforms breath, transforms your mind. If the breath is transformed, if that is transformed, so your consciousness, so your whole being, chanting Sanskrit, be it Veda, be it Tantra, doesn't matter. If there is inner wakefulness and inner search and inner drive for higher life, mantra works. It's not a question of politics where you row, in which line you row up. It's that longing, that icha, that we call it love main. Love is expansive, has a drive, it has a notion, has its own direction for the good, because it wants to discover and it wants to worship and praise. Basically, that's our whole being. That's how God functions, so Kashmiri Shaivism. And you see, in Veda, Vedanta, and Yoga Shastra, we can't explain off So Kashmiri Shaivism, as Guru Mark pointed out, it's the only tradition in all Indian traditions which actually expounds the inner life of God. And it puts it equal to our most essential being, our most essential identity, to the core of what we are, because it explains how God is, so how we can exist. That something takes place, anything takes place, it's Him, it's His life. And we are partakers. So human condition is an extremely beautiful condition to reflect Him back, to have Him reflect Himself. And that's what we call puja. So Kashmiri Shaivism, okay, we may say it did a sort of theophany of consciousness. Putting consciousness into the pantheon on its highest place, highest asana. But indeed, all deities appear in consciousness, which is always worshipped in all. Hinduism has always been monism. Sri Narayan Mishra pointed it out. He was the head of department of philosophy in BHU. He was very strong on making it clear Hinduism was always a monism. So I don't find much difference to Veda, if I may say, when I expound Kashmiri Shaivism. But it gave me a sense to understand what I'm doing when I sit in puja. And it makes a difference if you know what you're doing. And I would even say that's like climbing up the ladder of consciousness. Not by energy carrying you off, but by you gaining insight, right? And I'm a devotee of the Mother. I've been from the very early days. As one of my teachers said, you always had Shakti. But I started worshipping the Mother when I met my uncle. And Kashmiri Shaivism actually gave me an understanding to who she is, what she is, where she is. I'm in a Samayachara, Shri Vidya Sampradaya, and from South India, initiated in this tradition. After my uncle left his body, I found my Satguru in Swami Purnananda. And my teacher there, with whom I moved a lot, and she has the most beautiful Sanskrit pronunciation. Amazing. She does puja in front of thousands. And she told me, the Mother is right in front of you, but you don't see her. And if I may say, Dr. Mark made me see her. Because we should practice what we study, and we should study what we practice. And Kashmiri Shaivism is, apart from it being so excellent in covering the linguistic principles of the alphabets, for example, along the metaphysical principles, it also has a philosophy of language, which is mainly the philosophy of consciousness. And here Abhinavagupta, he says that one sound, nada, of my heart is the sound of my self-reflection, which is the highest speech, from where all speech comes forth. Within everything that will ever be said is said. And everything at the same time being heard as well, because it's a self-reflective speech. So this feature, Kashmiri Shaivism, teaching is prakasha, the light, and vimarsha, its reflection. And the light is Shiva, the reflection that's all movement, all motion, emotion, because it's his emotion. And that's regarded the Mother. So when we look to Shaivism or Kashmiri Shaivism, actually we adore the Mother.
So I wanted to acknowledge Dr. Dyczkowski, whom Vivek was mentioning, recently passed away, but he was a renowned and influential scholar in Kashmiri Shaivism, and all of the scholars that I know in my circle, in my communities, pay homage to him. And and I would like to acknowledge him as well in this video, because it's evident to me, at least, Vivek, that he's had a profound influence on you and your approach.
Yeah, very much. I mean, I followed him on each step for 16 years until the pandemic. In Benares itself, every year I went to his family to Bassano in Italy. I invited him for several workshops here to Munich. I'm here in South Munich, southern Germany. So you see, Guruji, he had a bad diagnosis already 2 years ago. And then it got much softer. But it was all of a sudden for his family and for his friends. The way he went into Mahaprakasha, left his body. But it was his great wish, and I would say like a true soul wish to be able to do that in Benares. And he managed to be in Benares. He was so worried that he wouldn't be in Benares. It's particularly auspicious to leave one's body in Benares. It's a place for learning and for leaving the body. These two things, they all correspond to Agya Chakra, to the place that Shiva never leaves. So this is Kashi, this is Varanasi, Benares. And he was in his room in front of Gangaji, and he finished the big work that where his, he lived for knowledge his whole life and for writing these books, doing the seva, the worship, the puja of the mother in a, you could call it an text critical work. And I always told him, you don't have to do the pujas because you're doing them in that form. And also playing the sitar, it would be equally such a puja. Yeah.
His work definitely lives on in you and in all of his students and his writings. So
yeah, no doubt about that. It will take us decades to comprehend his life's work.
Yeah, such a scholar, such a scholar.
Yeah, he wasn't wasted by the universities. He lived like a hermit. Yeah, and he bared also it was a great tapasya to be turning that knowledge, being alone, like a monk in a cave. It's a big spiritual inner heat you have to be able to bear. And for a long time. Kupchika, as far as I understood, the first 10 years, he didn't know what was there. He got that manuscript from Alexander Sanderson as a wedding gift. And he went into it, and for so many years, it didn't clue to him what was there. So to go through such periods of time is great tapasya.
Wonderful, yeah. I wanted to talk a little bit more about the practice of mantra. And I have a couple of open-ended questions more surrounding mantra practice in general, and then maybe we can get into a little bit more specifics in your book. But a lot of people that may not have much experience in mantra practice, maybe people from the West who are interested, or people that have a background in yoga wanting to know more, when they think of mantra, they tend to think more about repetition, repeating a certain phrase or, perhaps a Sanskrit chant. But I'm wondering if you could unpack what mantra really is from a traditional perspective. Like, what is happening when we recite a mantra on a spiritual level, on a mental level, even a vibrational level? Because the thing is, a lot of people tend to use the word mantra as something that, we might believe to be, say, like an affirmation. And they may not even be using Sanskrit phrases. They may just be thinking chanting certain thoughts. So I'm wondering if you could maybe talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. May I start with the end of the inquiry into the spiritual energy of mantra.
Yes,
That's
sure.
again Kashmiri Shaivism, Shiva Sutra, 2nd chapter, 1st Sutra, Chittam Mantra. And Kashmiri Shaivism uses the word mantra as a technical term which tries to point out that everything is expansive. Consciousness is expansive. Cognition, the presence, everything we partake is part of this expansion. And to be aware of that means to be full of, or to fill oneself with the knowledge of that. And you might read that chapter in my Vāgyoga book on the body of light, Vidya Sharira, Satta Mantra Rahasya, is the secret of mantra, the mantra Rahasya, the essence, and at the same time it also means the secret, Rahasya. So the mantra Rahasya is that life of God, because it doesn't freeze, it doesn't stop, it's ongoing. And you discover that within your own self, because you yourself are ongoing. Yeah. The soul is the manifestation of God's ongoing life. You see, in the Upanishads, there was an inquiry into death, and the result was always that life is eternal. In many Upanishads, we find inquiry into what is in the end of life, death. So the concept of the eternal life was formulated in the Upanishads. And this life, of course, is with God. It's His life, Kashmiri Shaivism again. And our consciousness, our presence, our existency is a proof of that. And here we talk about prana, we talk about the breath. Each breath we take is God's wish for us to take that breath. So we talk about His breath. He exhales, you inhale, and He's giving birth to that moment of my existence. Who is He? The one who gives existence, right? He does it with prana, with breath. So that breath of His moves down, the gift of life. And there it reflects up again. So this upward movement comes from the subject He created. It's Agni, Vedic symbolic. The fire burns, it creates a draft moving upwards again. And that's our exhalation. When we speak, it's always an exhalation. We never talk inhaling. It doesn't work. It's always an exhalation, right?
Right.
So consciousness transforms in its first instance into prana, is found in the commentary of Kshemaraja in several of his commentaries. Samvit Prag Prani Parinayata. Yeah, so his first step into the world, or him becoming the world, his wish to exist as the world, is transforming himself into prana. So this prana moves up again. And you see, Kashmiri Shaivism, again, Joey, of course we can take any Sanskrit word or sentence, even just the letters, and try to deeply absorb them by hearing, by speaking, by being aware. And it will calm us down, it will give us center, repetitive mantra recitation. Will do same, it will protect our mind because we will be occupied with the mantra. In the same time, trana, darpana, as in Tantra it said, it should be used for reflection. So reflection of what? And we should know what we are practicing. So Kashmiri Shaivism, in a very pedagogically, trying to clarify what was there before. Now, Kashmiri Shaivism is closer to our times than to Vedic. It's in the end of a 4,000-5,000 years laid out ritualistic culture. And here mantras were used to accompany ritualistic acts. And the first usage of the word yoga was to be united with that divine instrument that would enable the offerings in the circle of everything coming and going. And, I mean, modern rituals are pretty much that cosmic ritual, a replay or an imitation of what we might call God's nature. And we're talking about all that real nature out there. Yeah, our civilization, same as the woods and the oceans, and yeah. But for example, in Veda, how interesting, the realm of Indra, the Indra Loka. Yeah, and in Veda we find many mantras. I'm going a bit off trail, but let it be.
Yeah, sure.
Many mantras and rituals are there to invoke rain. So it's a worship of life, Hinduism. Yeah, same as Kashmiri Shaivism, doing it in behalf of consciousness, being that life. But in Veda, it was, for example, Indra, the plane in the outer layers of our atmosphere, where the vaporized water atoms, by worshipping Vayu, they would come together and they would form drops, and it would rain. And it would rain down on the earth, and the earth would flourish and green, and the children would jump and the animals would be happy. And for that, the Vedic Yajna was done. For that circle of life, that perpetuate, ongoing life of God. Again, I'm using phrases we apply in Kashmiri Shaivism. So if that's clear to us, our exhalation should be able to carry that notion. It should reflect that understanding. So speech, our thoughts, what we intend, what we think, what we understand, by moving up back to Him, is explained as the best offering. So mantra is the uprising breath, resounding a content where God is understood and worshipped in the same time. That means you are there completely, because that can only happen within your heart, within your soul. The understanding, the intention, the action, the sentiment which goes along that. What, having carried your whole life to that moment where you make it possible again and again and again and again. It's very transformative. So to worship God with our thoughts, as Swami Lakshmanju would say, spiritual thinking is mantra, positive thinking. Thinking as he would think about himself is mantra. So we're not talking about mantras politicians use or businessmen. A mantra is an instrument somebody uses to gain spiritual knowledge, right? It's not a drug. It's not an instrument of magic. Also the tantras are full of it, but all of India, to be clear about it, all of India teaches liberation through knowledge, not through karma. Well, okay, Mimamsa says Svargam Yajit, for to reach heaven, you should do the offerings. But the fruits you gain in Vedic rituals that bring you into that plane of heaven where you consume that fruits, having consumed them, will throw you back into the realm of the mortal. So we are there's a common notion about that in Asia. And that liberation is a complete cessation of karma, having it completely burnt out, to stop the wheel of rebirth, of ongoing. You know the word for Bhairava in that is used in Kashmiri Shaivism by Abhinavagupta instead of the word of Shiva. He uses Bhairava. It has two Sanskrit roots you could etymologically detect. One would be to be full, and the other one to be full of fear, or to be full of shouting, of screaming. And etymologically it's explained that this is the state of the soul facing endless and boring rebirth. So our soul is divine, it is full of knowledge. It knows from where it came, where it goes. We lost sight of it. And at some moments the soul shouts because it sees us tangling again into endless rows of rebirth. And it knows they are boring. Yeah, I like very much what Guru Mark, how he once put it. He said, the finite world is boring and that's the best of it. And the eternal is endlessly exciting. Yeah, so the word Bhairava reflects that very strong because it's a soul that reacts on being stuck to the gluey nature of Maya, to overcome that. The soul's longing. And this type of burning, you see, I had many teachers in my life. And one was a very special German who went into Rig Veda. I was treating him like a guru. I met him only in Benares. But he calls me now and then. He's now in Rajasthan. He's older than me. And I've seen him transforming his life. Kundalini awakening happening. He goes into samadhis. And he does it with the Rig Veda. And he says he uses a Vedic terminology for what we use our Tantric. But it's pretty much same. Yeah, that striving, that wakefulness, as we would name it. He calls tapas, the Agni with which he sits, the tapas with which he sits, unites him, elevates him to be united with Varuna, the great ocean. And he experiences cessation into the peacefulness of that great ocean. So, okay, in Buddhist time, it was quite like two different sides of a river, Veda and Tantra, but that's not the point. The point is all yoga leads to meditation. Be it Vedic, be it Tantric. Veda was more of a power language. Tantra is more of a scientific, explanatory language, capable of explaining for a modern mind, because we have developed our mind very far. That's just what happened. So to utilize that development, Kashmiri Shaivism is excellent. Yeah, and of course there's philosophy, there's devotion. Yeah, all of it can be explained as a relationship that fits best with the word we use for love. And Guru Marki used a lot of Rumi to depict these moments in his class when he tried to talk about the love of the Lord and his energy and how things work and how they should work. And only by that they can also recognize themselves. The real puja may start. So we have culture and we practice accordingly. And we may also do it with a more complete knowledge because the ritual will become more and more complete. And by ritual, I'm talking about our lives as well, not just the Vedic yagya. Okay, to have the offerings prepared with care and love and with all we could do, with so much attention and so much learning and skills and the tapas of each one of us. But then to understand that it's this self-reflection, which is the divine offering, that God, he's not biting into an apple. You may serve him an apple, but he will not take it and bite into it. He is so subtle, he's everywhere. So, but he partakes your self-reflection. And Kashmiri Shaivism teaches that as the highest offering. So if we serve him with love and respect and dedication and effort in the understanding of who we are, it's not only an inner subtle energy that we offer to him, but it's also an outer ritual that in a complete form we offer to him. You see, Abhinavagupta, he said, a guru who hasn't got knowledge, he's just an actor. Dhyana hina guruhu karmi. He's just a karmi. He can just explain that you should take something from the right and put it to the left. And then you take it from over there and you put it here, and so on. Because of very complex rituals happen. It should be explained why we do what we do. And Kashmiri Shaivism does it very, very well. And now to come down with the subject a bit, the base of all of that, of course, is mantra. Because that great body of God, if we depict in metaphysic principles, universalities, and always parallel to linguistic principles. Because that life that is really worth of worshipping, it's our uprising breath. Yeah. So urdhve prano yado jivo. Yeah. Prana moves up, life moves down. He gives life and prana moves up. The whole yoga world got that wrong. Hatha yoga. Switched around the phrases. Many reasons for why that took place. I mean, even Sahasrara chakra got moved. 1,000-petaled lotus, it's innumerable petals. And it's because at the end, God is great. He's Maha. He's endless in his infinite being. And of course, he's also the world. There he is Aham. He's the reflection of everything that can be. Also here we'll find not two similar things. There is a endless creation, but the same endlessness is in his inner life, yeah, where time and space move out of relativities, yeah. So Kashmiri Shaivism is really beautiful for people who are good to use their mind, understanding. That's where it's so. Shankaracharya could not be reflected upon by modern science, Advaita Vedanta. But quantum physics, astrophysics, particle physics, all of that what they discover, they could barely discover within the philosophy of Kashmiri Shaivism. And we are by far not where it's going to reach. Yeah. So we look upon a in-depth and also cosmic knowledge. Yeah. Knowledge about the soul, but also about the cosmos, which goes through 5,000 years, and Sanskrit, being the soul of India, preserved it in its grammar, in its sound. Yeah, not only the meaning is sacred, also the sound is sacred. And all dharmic religion, Hinduism, Buddhism, yeah, Vaishnavism and Shaivism, Buddhism, they're all dharmic religions, are based on Sanskrit. And the maxim was always to keep the Sanskrit pure. It's quite a phenomena, its antiquity. We don't know, we haven't got anything similar in the antiquity and preservedness that Sanskrit presents. You know, we like to change everything now and then, especially languages are always changing and developing. Sanskrit stayed pure from the first until now, the moment now. And because being the language of God or of that self-reflection, it carries, you might say, the rhythm, the frequency of what creates or nourishes self-reflection. So just for anybody interested in mantra and in Sanskrit and yoga with mantra, just to chant, to speak Sanskrit and to keep on doing it. Yeah. I mean, a plant needs water, a tree in particular. If life is rather a tree, it should get a bit of water every day. And it creates self-reflection to indulge into Sanskrit. And it's not a question whether you are initiate or not initiate. If your heart is in search for something higher, for a higher life, for the reason of life, or one's own existence, or so deeply touched that it wants to express a particular love into that direction, anything we can use being a mantra. Yeah, in Shaivism we call the mother like a newly born. Yeah, the purer, the younger, the better, because the purer it will be, calling for the mother, the only form of what is perceived to a newly born is the mother, by emotion, by sound, by her lips, by the touch. No subject-object difference, discrepance, no partition. So in that state, that natural call, Shaivism, Tantra teaches as the light, getting life through the mother, the reflection, where it is able to shine back and be perceived by itself. And this is like a child calling, because the light is in love with where it comes from, or the sound is in love with where it comes from. So a mantra is in love with where it comes from. So that's how we try to practice. Yeah, to chant and mantra with the same purity or objectivelessness as a very, very young born child in Shaktism, in Shaivism. Yeah, and this whole expansiveness of our soul is explained as the utterance of mantra. So I can call the mother in German. That works very well. My mother's chant. Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, it's not a question of the language you use. Sanskrit is beautiful. Yeah, the grammar is powerful. The mantras are powerful. The frequency they produce are in harmony with the cosmic frequency. They create intelligence. Yeah, they keep us in the center, keep us centered, not getting lost, staying there where what is to be seen and to perceived can be perceived.
That actually, I had several questions to ask you, and I think you've already anticipated and answered several of them. So I appreciate that. It sounds like it's not just about the sound or the utterance, because that can become a very mechanical practice. But what you're talking about is to bring that rasa, that energy of bhakti, of devotion into it. And that almost seems like it's the primal element of a mantra, is it not? Am I interpreting that correctly? Or
yeah, you're right. Well, that's a bit the trick. You see, I'm initiated into Tantric systems and into Veda and wearing the Yajnapadvita. I keep Vedic vow and I sing for the mother. I've been singing for her my whole life, right? And Kashmiri Shaivism says it doesn't depend on you, not to take it wrong, please. Yeah, or let's phrase it a bit different. If your guru is enlightened, of what help is that to you? If you should recognize yourself. So it puts your own experience on first place, and then the scripture, and then Guru. Because if we are just satisfied with being part of some movement, getting Diksha from some Guru, maybe that being the most famous or said to be most powerful Guru, it should also be of help for you to re-recognize yourself, right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
we have a very political
Totally.
mind, usually. That's a human condition. We like to be lining up at places. We like to have pacifying minds, think things that please ourselves. Also in the name of God, also in the name of spirituality. And I mean, to find a real guru, it's rather he's finding you. And he will not be your friend, be sure about it. You will be afraid to death by your real guru. Yeah. So we should be humble with ourselves and with life and its stories and the traditions and mantras that come to us, techniques, teachers, friends we meet. Yeah, if there's no inner quest, there will be no answer. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Real spiritual growth is not, rainbows and sunshine and lollipops. It's a lot of hard work.
Yeah. We tend to perceive things like this, life. Mind works like that, no? Utpaladeva, he called the mind the god thief and the god thieves, because they're always creating a limitation from totality, mind. And yet he is so beautiful, he creates all of that.
I was wondering if you could maybe talk a little bit more about if someone listening hasn't really worked with mantra before, but they want to try. Where would you suggest they begin? I mean, you sort of dropped a few hints along the way with the Sanskrit alphabet and this and that, but are there any specific mantras or approaches you found helpful for Westerners or, modern students to build a connection with their practice?
When I went to study Sanskrit, I was chanting in Benares itself, in the Sampurnanand Sanskrit Vishwavidyalaya, the University of Sanskrit. For 1 year, I was only chanting the alphabets. That's what a student does. The alphabet is of uttermost importance. We should have a solid ground by bringing consciousness to our organ of pronunciation, the energy that each pronunciation takes, the place, the vibration it creates. If we haste there, you see, the Sanskrit alphabets are a bit like a lotus, the petals opening. Only if the outer ones to open up, the inner ones can proceed. So if one sound is, may I say, corrupt, the other one will not be able to enter its own spirit. And it's a bit like brothers or brothers and sisters. If you don't enter your own personality, you'll not allow the other one to enter this, right? And that means a proper sound in the Sanskrit alphabet. Yeah, because they are the most pure, most resonant, most beautiful sounds the human organ of pronunciation can produce, and we can also perceive. So they are capable of putting us into the highest mode of vibration. And by that, I actually mean absorption of consciousness, to be absorbed by the sound. So if one sound of the alphabet is not correct, the contrast, the other one will not work. And that will just continue to lose, like a stick. If it's broken somewhere, it lost its tension. Like
That's
electricity. Good. If it's broken somewhere, it can't flow. right? Yeah. You see, it's not an easy thing to learn Sanskrit. Even going to India and the Western universities, it's not big of a subject to learn. External pronunciation of Sanskrit is not required in any academic Indological career. In yoga, it's good enough to be good in concentrating on the body. That's enough. Studying is not required. And if you go to India and you look for a Sanskrit teacher, you'll not be able to verify if he's a good teacher. So each sound being used for worship, try to get that joy. Each sound, simple sound of the Sanskrit alphabet, of the 51 aksharas of the alphabet, is one step further of God's body expanding into the universe. And each of these sounds used for worshipping in this wonderful maneuver we call life contains the energy of his unifold body. So a guru, he gives that as the greatest thing he can give, or he carries to well-deserved students. He wouldn't throw it away for nothing, because it contains the energy of recognizing God. And here we start in Tantra. That's why the alphabets are so important. And to practice the alphabet is very powerful and beautiful. It gives vitality, it sets our mind free, it can take us out of depression if such problems are there. Because it's really like a flower, it's a opening up, not of a flower, but of you, because you are that sounding form. And that's really a very enlightening experience for anybody who gets the chance to be introduced into the Sanskrit alphabet, and then into the words, and then to the combination of words forming sentences, being mantras, because all of that develops a bringing out of a frequency, of a rhythm that is very conducive to our spiritual self. I described it in my book as the heart frequency of Shiva. Yeah, there are clinical tests that if you have a corrupt Sanskrit grammar, it creates heart distortion, heart rhythm distortions. So Sanskrit indeed is a beautiful human cultural treasure box of having preserved this intelligence of nature in something like grammar, in something like sound, in something like how we should live. Veda teaches what to do, not what not to do. And Tantra, how to use energy. So who we are, who he is, what the world is, where we're coming from, where we're going to. The whole purpose of life. Life should never become boring. It should become more and more exciting. Then we are on a good path. Yeah, and if I may say, the tantras and the rituals where practice with mantra leads up to, they are beautiful because they create an ongoing developing of new worlds that you are about to explore. And within your body, but also within your mind, within the movement of the sentiments, be it his body within him in higher identification, where all of that in Tantra at least is leading to, because you identify with the deity. That's what you try to do more and more by chanting a mantra, that the mantra becomes the overall reality. And that means your breath, your mind, your body, your job, your relationships, and your house, your town, your countryside, the stillness, the state of no mind that also we partake, and the pure emotion. But you see, when I want to go to Berlin, every moment that I'm going to Berlin, I can also have a state without thoughts. and knowing where I'm going to. So our heart should beat in such a way for a higher life or for a divine reality behind everything. Quantum physics searches for the source of the code of life within light. That's what Tantra expounds, nothing else. Yeah. So no knowledge without identification.
I love that. I think the other thing too is that if people want, they can also pick up your book too, because you go through these practices, and I mean this is described in a lot more detail, where you actually break it down in the alphabet, and then you bring more and more, and then there's actually like recordings that they can follow as well, which is very helpful.
Yeah, this book tries to fill up something that was lacking so far, to my understanding. I've been going through all the bookshops in Benares for all my life. I went through the bookshops in the universities, and there's either very scholarly things which are written thousands of years ago in a language incomprehensible for us, or it's too light. It doesn't get the point. Since learning Sanskrit properly, I didn't find any book that would serve that purpose to my personal satisfaction. So I collected in the first part on Shiksha and the training of pronunciation and recitation. And that's pretty much what I collected over 30 years of devotion to sound. And then, if I may say, the fruits of all of that are these, because that's the outer practice, to get it right, the usage of that exhalation. No, it's the breath moving up, it's going through the organs of pronunciation, the throat, the palate, and first natural way from inside to out. And that's the outer practice. And then the fruits, if I may say, of these 30 years are the insights of Kashmiri Shaivism. And I owe them to Dr. Mark Dyczkowski, Rajanaka Mark, who is of such a blessing to our modern times, because his love for the mother is same as of somebody sitting and chanting mantra, but being an Oxford scholar and somebody so widely read as I have not met, I've not come across anybody else so far. So people are not aware how much he transformed the texts of the Tantras into a modern language, a language that is easy comprehensible for us.
I think that's really what's needed in this day and age, because a lot of these teachings to an extent have been commodified, and also they've been simplified, which has its role in creating a doorway or a space where people can access the knowledge. But I think at the end of the day, there's such a beautiful depth to this knowledge that we're doing a disservice when we're trying to build a nice little box or package around it. We really need that scholarly approach is essential as well. And I really love this conversation, and I probably could go on for a lot longer. As we draw to a close, do you have any thoughts you'd like to share with my audience that in closing that sort of summarize or encapsulate what we've discussed here today?
How about me chanting something?
I would love that.
Shall I chant something that has been sung for the mother in the last 9 days? I remember my teacher.
Yes, please.
My teacher once, two of my teachers met, and one was singing to the other that part from the Devi Mahatmya. I think I'll do that. It's the part where she invokes Kali. From the 7th chapter of the Durga Saptashati. Om Hrim Shrim Rishirvacha Agyaptaste Todetyaschandamandapadagamah Chaturangapalopeta Yayurubhyutyadayadhaha Tadrishuste Tato Devi Midhashasam Vyavasthitam Singhasya Parishedendri Shringi Mahati Kanchani Te Trishvatam Samadatum Utyamam Chakra Rudyatha Akrishtashapasidharaha Tathani Tatsamipagaha Tatha Kopam Chakaro Chai Ambika Tanarim Prati Kopina Chasya Vadanam Mashivelna Babhutada Bharukoti Kutilatasya Lalata Falakatrutam Kali Karala Vedana Vinishkrantasi Pashini Vichitra Khatvangadhara Naramala Vibhushana Dvipischarma Baridhana Shushkamang Sadibhairava Ativistarabadana Chihvalalala Bhushana Nimagna Raktanayana Nada Purita Dimukha Savegina Bhipatita Katyanti Mahasaran Senye Tatra Suradi Nama Bhakshad Tadbalam Parshnikraham Kshakraha Yorkantasamanvitan Samadayai Kahastina Mukhe Chikshepavadrinan Tatheva Yodham Turagaihi Ratham Saratina Saha Nikshapya Vaktre Dashanehi Charvayanchati Bhairavam Ekam Chakraha Kesheshu Krivayamata Chaparam Padina Kramya Chaivanyam Urasanamaputoyatho Tirmuktani Shastrani Mahastrani Tatasurai Mukhina Chakra Harusha Dashinir Matitanyapi Palinam Tatpalam Sarvam Asuranam Duratmanam Mamarda Bhakshayachanyan Anyang Shatadayatata Asinani Hata Kechit Kirtvangataditaha Chakmur Vinasho Masura Dantakra Pietasthata Kshanina Tadbalam Sarvam Asuranam Nipatitam Trishva Chando Bitutravatam Kalimadi Bhishanam Sarvashai Mahabhime Bhimakshimta Mahasuraha Chatayamasa Chakreshta Mundakshiptai Sahasrasha Tan Chakranani Kani Vishamanani Tanmukham Paburyatharga Bimbani Subahuni Ghanodaram Tato Chahasati Rusha Bhimam Bhairavinadini Kali Karala Vadana Nundan Shanandanochvala Untaya Cha Mahasingham Devi Chandamadhavata Kritva Cha Sakhi Shesho Shirastina Sinanchinata Athamundo Bhyadhavattam Trishtva Chandam Nipaditam Tamatyapadiad Bhumau Sakhatka Bhyetam Rusha Hatoshesham Tthosainyam Trishtva Chandam Nipaditam Mundam Cha Sumahaviryam Dishobhechi Bhayathuram Shiras Chandasya Kali Cha Grihitva Mundam Eva Cha Praha Prachandataha Samishmapyetya Chandikam Maya Tavatropakhrito Chandamando Mahapashu Yudhayagye Swayam Shumbham Nishumbham Cha Nishyasi Om Hrim Shrim Rishravacha Tavani Tato Drishtva Chandamando Mahasuro Uvat Kalim Kalyani Lalitam Chandikavachaha Yasma Chandam Chamundam Cha Grihitva Tvamupakatha Chamundi Titato Loke Khyata Devi Bhavishyasi Om Jai Ma.
Hey, Ma. Thank you so much for that. That was just beautiful. I found myself entering a space that I didn't want to come out of. And it's very evident when you're chanting, you can get drawn into that Shakti.
Yes,
So thank you.
that's what we were talking about. Thank you so much, Joey, for having me. I enjoyed it very much.
I really appreciate it.
Wonderful.
I'm going to put the link to your website in the description. And if anyone wants to get in touch with you, they can do that through that and access your courses, and also a link to purchasing your book. Vivek Nath, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate you and all the scholarly work you're doing. God bless you.
Thank you, Joey, for your wakefulness and your receptivity. I could feel it how you did. So much I did enjoy
Thank you.
as well.
Thank you.
Truly.